Yo, what's popping? The Celtics are heading to Dallas for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. They're up to zip. Lots of questions surrounding Kristaps Porzingis availability. I'm Adam Taylor. If you're new here, then I cover the Celtics for SB Nation, USA Today, and a growing Boston Celtics newsletter called the Celtics Chronicle. Hit that link in the description below if you want to sign up for free or become a paid member. I'm joined by my boy, Mr. Tim Shields of Celtics blog at SB Nation and also formerly of CLNS Media. Today, we're going to be looking into the 3 keys for the Boston Celtics to come away with a Game 3 victory on the road and keep that unbeaten road record in the postseason going. Key 1 is going to be, quite simply, who replaces Porzingis in the rotation? I think that's got to be the first question asked. It's the most prominent question, and it could be the biggest swing factor in this game. Just because the Celtics need to find a way of getting that production if, and we're putting if in big, bold letters, Porzingis doesn't play. He's day-to-day. He may suit up, maybe on a minutes restriction. We don't know. But if he's ruled out, you need to know where you're going next. The 3 options available are Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman, O'Shea Brissett. Technically, we can put Nimi in there, like Nehemiah's Quater, but I'm just not adding him in because he's not ready.
We're not going to entertain the idea.
Yeah, and I mean, he could make impact, but he could also get cooked drastically. There's an option there, but we're just going to gloss over that. We've mentioned it to say legit. So the options are Cornett, Tillman, Brissett. Tim, who are you leaning into first and foremost? If you had to make a choice and Porzingis isn't in the rotation, who are you bringing for that?
I think I probably have to lean. I feel like I have to lean more towards Brissett or Tillman only because of mobility's sake. I just think the physical nature of some of these bigs that Dallas has, they match up a little bit better. Tillman's got some playoff experience and had a deep playoff run with Memphis. My only concern is just like where he's at physically, where is he going to be comfortable out there? He hasn't gotten a lot of run with the Celtics and obviously was acquired at the deadline. So there are concerns there, but I think there's pluses and minuses for all of these guys. Like I would say that Cornett, I'm interested to see how they could use him just because I think he gives you that size. So he's still going to be like a rim deterrent, but he's also going to be that lob threat. You know, you get the 2-man game with him and Tatum. He's really capable of playing the offensive board. So again, there's going to be some questions there because I think he could get massively exposed and, if he gets switched on to a Doncic or an Irving. But I think that goes for a lot of the big men. So it's kind of pick your poison.
Yeah, and there's an argument to be said that Porzingis could get exposed if he was put on an island against either of those 2 guys. The Celtics have done a great job of switching and sending help early to stop that kind of island defense occurring in general. Luke Cornett, to me, has the biggest argument for a spot if Porzingis is out, just because of how he's played through the regular season. He's emerged as arguably top 2 best third-string bigs in the NBA. Has proven he can contain the ball handler coming off pick and roll, so he can slow down that dribble drive and allow the trail defender to get back up onto the ball handler tip, while also being able to tag the rolling big man and take away the lob threat there. Also keeps that 7-foot poise so he can match up with Derek Lively, who is the only genuine 7-footer on Dallas's roster. But as you say, there are some concerns about whether he'd be able to contain dribble drives, if he's got the foot speed to be able to deal with the Kyrie and Luka slashes. There are issues. I do think on offense, his DHO game, his willingness to be a screener, the way he sets veer screens, one screen into another, off ball into on ball into off ball, that allows Boston's offense to flow in general, and he's been a very valuable member of that rotation all season. The downside is, hey, maybe Tillman comes in, gives you that physicality, the switchability, and on offense, he can run some of the HOs. He's a solid screener himself, very physical in the dunker spot, has some playoff experience. You feel comfortable there. And then the other one is, we can bring Brissett off the bench, move Jason Tatum up to the 5, have him run like a 0.5. So you keep your delay actions, you keep your spacing. Brissett becomes your dunker spot guy, so you're not really getting hurt by his lack of 3-point shooting. But you're getting explosiveness and rebounding, and you're getting a little bit of controlled chaos, right? And then all you need to do is make sure he doesn't get switched on to a Kyrie or Luka, because he's going to get exposed just because he's a little bit overzealous with trying to jump passing lane, trying to get steals. He'll probably pick some fouls early. It all depends where you kind of see this game going and what you see from this team that you like and what you don't like. For me personally, I think Brissett would work in a vacuum just because you are able to play him at that 5 spot. Now, just because it worked against Indiana doesn't mean it's going to work against Dallas. Indiana's pace was a lot higher. Brissett kind of chaotic style really threw a spanner in the works for them. Dallas play fast, but not that fast. When you're if I put you on a position now and I'm like, yo, Tim, you have to choose one of these 3 guys. Whatever you choose is what they're going to do. Who are you running with?
I think I'm being pushed more towards Brissett the more we talk about it. Honestly, I mean, they gave Brissett, I think we've seen, I don't want to be quoted on this because I don't know the exact numbers without pulling it up, but I feel like Brissett's probably got more run than Tillman if you look at throughout the season, just based on when he's been there, I am interested.
That's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't mean necessarily a hot take, but I don't want to be talking out of my butt when it comes to minutes, at least in that kind of workload. But
Yeah.
I feel like O'Shea's kind of earned it too, because I think he's kind of been one of those guys that they've just been like, hey, we're gonna throw you out, like just be cool with this, and he's kind of just rolled with it. I've been a little bit more worried about Tillman only because of that knee. He had some kind of weird knee impingement or something like that when he first came over, and that was why he didn't really get any run initially. And then, you started to see him a little bit more towards the end of the season once he kind of got healthy and acquainted. It still doesn't look like he was like 100%, so I really don't know what's going on there. And I think, honestly, like Luke, if you're trying to run like a smaller ball lineup and you want to have Tatum out there at the 5 and see how that could go, I am interested because Tatum's been an amazing rebounder, and 2, I also want to see what this unit can like get out and run. And if O'Shea allows you to do that, then I think you explore that, even if it isn't just short spurts. Again, like really right now, you're not necessarily looking at, hey, we need to replace all of Kristaps Porzingis' minutes, because we still don't know, even at this point of recording, if we're going to see the guy or not. But it's more so about how do you alleviate some of the workload off of Al Horford? Because it's without question, he's going to have to continue to do what he's been doing, which is stepping up massively and being a huge piece of this playoff run. And if this is the last, hurrah for Al Horford, then let's make it work. Let's make it last, and let's get the most out of him. And that means lightening up that workload. If it means throwing Brissett out there, if it means throwing Cornet out there in short bursts, whatever you have to do to give Al a breather, because he's certainly earned it.
Yeah, and look, if Porzingis doesn't play, it's not going to be all of Porzingis' minutes go to Brissett or to Tillman or to Luke. It's going to be some of those minutes go to Horford. Horford gets a boost. Some of those minutes might go to a Sam Hauser because he's done well defensively in this series so far. And then whatever's left goes to who's going to replace Porzingis in that rotation. Obviously, you could also be like, yo, we're going to split those minutes and go to a 9 deep rotation, a 10 deep rotation. There's no legal limit. Like, you're not going to get disqualified from the NBA Finals who used to be depth, right? It's just kind of an unwritten rule. You shorten that shit once you get to this level at this stage. I'm okay with whoever they run. I feel like there's value to each of them. If I had to choose, gun to head, kind of, yo, you've got to choose, and who you choose is who they're running with. I'm probably going with Brissett in this game. And my reasoning is, as I mentioned earlier, it put Tatum at the 5. It gives you some controlled chaos. But I also think when you're playing on the road, you need that energy boost. You need somebody that can come off the bench and light a spark under everybody. And hustle plays are a great way to do that on the road and quieten down the opposing crowd. Brissett's the type of guy that's going to crash those boards hard and every single time. And if you've got a Brissett, a Tatum, a Pritchard all on the floor together, and maybe Drew's out there too, you've got 4 guys that are very capable of coming up with offensive rebounds consistently. And all of a sudden, those rebounds start to build up into momentum, secondary offense, tertiary offense. Now, once you're feeling good about yourself, you can really lock in and do what you need to do and hone out all the noise around you. That's part of why I'm very big on the Brissett kind of coming in and sliding in at the 4, moving Tatum to the 5. If not Brissett, I do lean Luke over Tillman, mainly because for me, Tillman's an unknown commodity in this system. He hasn't been entrusted with that much in terms of minutes, production. For me, I don't feel comfortable choosing him over Cornet. That's really enshrined in how the Celtics play and has proven that he can be valuable and impactful and all these adjectives that we want to use when you're choosing a guy that's barely played over him. So
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna say like Brissett for the energy, for the spark. But if that's not working, pivot to Cornet and stick with Luke Cornet. Tillman for me should be a break glass in case of emergency option, because you get for us all of it. He is a known commodity in this system with this team.
We have
This
no
level,
idea how he fits in perfectly or not.
you just haven't seen enough of it. He didn't get that run. So for me, he's bottom of that totem pole, and nothing against him. It's just at this level, I don't want to have to find out how you think. If we don't know that now, we don't need to know that until the off season or next season or whenever. But right now, for me, it goes Brissett for energy, Cornet for reliability.
I don't think that's fair, especially when it comes to Cornet and just his rebounding. Being in a big body, just being able to replicate anything that you get from Porzingis is going to be big. So, and again, all hypotheticals. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about it too much. But again, whether KP plays or not, I think one of these guys is going to factor into the equation moving forward, at least for the rest of the playoffs. Makes
And
sense too.
Before we move on to the second key of the game, I do just want to stop for a moment. I just want to pay homage. I want to really big up and show some love to that shirt that you're wearing, because it's fucking brilliant.
This?
Yeah, dude, I love it. Love
Thank
it.
you. I thought you were about to say something. I thought you were going to say something completely different.
I know what you thought I was going to say. I know what you thought I was going to say. But nah, man, that shirt's fire, dude. I love it.
Thank you.
The Miami vibe. Miami vibe. Smoking on that Jimmy Butler pack right now.
Mm-hmm. Cancun on 3.
1, 2. So, talking to number 2, looking at the second key to the game. For me, and we discussed this off air, right? For me, and arguably for most people that have been watching film after these games and really trying to dissect what's going on, it has to be sticking with your defensive principles and not blinking. And what I mean by that is don't send 2. Don't send 2 at Luka, because once you send 2 at Luka, that's when good stuff happens for Dallas. Right now, if you listen back to some of Luka's post-game comment after game 1, after game 2, his argument has been, hey, they're really good at guarding you straight up. They don't send a second, they don't double you. They send help and they dig at you and they stunt at you and they make you really play under pressure. But they don't often put 2 on you, because when they put 2 on you, now there's somebody open and Luka can make a decision. You get the roll, and then you get Dallas gets into their lob game. I've got an article coming out on Celtics blog today about how Boston have really limited that lob game from Luka, and how that kind of collapsed a lot of what Dallas does offensively, because now they don't have that outlet. So key 2 is don't send 2. You stay guard, man up, send help. Not only does that limit Luka, it limits Kyrie as well, because now Kyrie has to try and beat you off the dribble. And he'd had some issues doing that against Jaylen Brown. We've seen it time and time again. Kyrie goes into his bag, gets into his little dribble package, and Jaylen Brown's just like, dude, do what you need to do. You ain't going nowhere. Look dope, but you ain't gone nowhere. Dude, you're closer to the baseline than you were at the start of your dribble moves. So that to me is a very, very important aspect of just the Celtics defensive system. There was times in game 2 they started to double Luka. You got blitz off Derek Lively. You got a lob pass. You got Luka bringing you onto the side, and then a secondary screen coming and popping out, and now Luka's finding God. And that's how Luka found rhythm, found his playmaking touches. When you were guarding him straight up, he was really, really struggling to make things happen, especially in game 1 where he only had 1. Just want to get where you're at with this. If you think sending 2 smart, if you think there needs to be a happy medium here, where you at with it, man?
I think having a second defender to dig is going to be good, but yeah, I don't think committing 2 guys to covering him is smart, especially because as soon as you do that, you know because of just how talented Luka Doncic is as a playmaker, he's going to get the ball out, it's going to start to swing around, you're going to find somebody open on the perimeter, and you saw it a little bit at times when they would send a help defender, when they were kind of trying to force Dallas to scramble. I think there was one possession I could think of where I want to say it was Porzingis, and then maybe it was Drew or Jalen got brought in as a help defender. And the ball, I think the ball ended in a missed 3, but it's still, again, like it was an open look. And especially as you get back to Dallas, that's where like the role players start to find their groove, right? I think that's ultimately what a lot of people are afraid about, is going back to Dallas, guys like Kyrie Irving or PJ Washington finding his groove. or Derek Jones Jr., some of these other fringe roster players that are with Dallas right now as part of the rotation, like how do those guys factor into the equation? And that's kind of what I would worry about too, is like put Luka Doncic on an island. Make him beat you one-on-one. Take away those lobs, like you were saying. Take away those passing lanes. And definitely have, like, especially if Luka gets somebody in the post, because Luka in the post is actually kind of scary. His fadeaway jumper is very nice. So, and there's a couple of times where I've seen a couple friendly rolls here or there. Same thing with Kyrie Irving, where if you give those guys even a little bit of space, enough room to operate and get one of those looks up, they're more likely than not they're going to get the friendly bounce, or you're lucky and you force a miss. But that doesn't happen if you send a second defender. You can have somebody ready to dig and give a little bit of help, but you do not want to overcommit on defense and risk having an open corner three, which has happened in the past to the Celtics, or just creating opportunities for open passing lanes. It's just not something you can do with Luka, because he's one of those guys, much like Nikola Jokic, where it's just an insane playmaker that will find guys in the most unconventional ways possible. We've already seen it so far in this series. Unfortunately, at least in game one, I want to say it was game one, that the Celtics held Luka to only 1 assist. So whatever they're doing defensively, keep doing it. Don't go away from it. If it's throwing this guy off his game, you have to commit to doing it. You muted.
I'm glad, because I went to say they blinked and I said they blunked. They blinked in game 2 when they did start sending 2. They blinked in game 2 when they did start. It's got some rhythm to it. I like it. But overall, they've been very fluid with how they've guarded these guys. There's always been good nail help. There's been good gap help. They dig. They do deep digs. They're trying to pressure pickups when Luka's in the post, when Kyrie is trying to get in the post. And then on the flip side of things, when they're playing offensively, they're doing a really good job of getting back in transition, building out to the ball. If you notice, one of the things that the Celtics have done as well to kind of keep this one-on-one matchup style is they'll put one of their primary on-ball guys, one of their primary point guys will kind of pick somebody up full court, and then you'll have 2 other on-ball defenders step up above the perimeter, and that's now your high help line. So defenses usually have 2 lines. They have a high help line and a low help line. Low help line is usually a step or 2 up from the baseline. You'll have 2 guys there. Those are your help defenders, the guys that collapse in the rim, and the guys that shoot out to contest corner shot. Your high help line is usually like that elbow extended across that free throw line. That's usually your box standard pickup point, right? And then you'll have one guy probably picking up above on the ball handler. Boston have adjusted that, so their high help line is outside of the 3-point line completely. And then they've got their on-ball guy, their point of attack guys picking you up full court or at least at half court. And what that's doing now is it taking away your drag actions, your early screens, your double drags, your Finland actions, your whatever you want to run with the 21, whatever you want to run, taking that away because the offense is running into the defense so high up the floor. And now we're forcing you into early isolation, where you need that pick and roll to create that separation. But the Celtics have already got a gap defender there waiting to jump there and force you into either picking the ball up or escape dribbling. And that's taking away a lot of what Dallas does in terms of creating lobs, in terms of creating space for Luka off the initial pick and roll. And they're forcing them to grind down that shot clock to, hey, your second action will begin at 8 seconds. Now you're sped up now because you've got to make something work, and we've already made you chew most of the clock. So it's a tough one. That's been a good adjustment by Boston, and it's an adjustment that I'd like to see continue. It's just I always find it a little bit harder on the road because role players play up a bit more. And you're playing in this hostile environment. You need to tune that out. So, and you don't want to ask the Drew Holiday, Derek White, or Jaylen Brown to burn themselves out too much, picking up full court on every possession. And it's quite easy for a team to figure out how to blow up a defense that's adjusted that high up. So they need to be fluid in how they do this. But it's definitely been a good adjustment, a smart adjustment. And I'm very confident that Mazzulla has like little wrinkles he can throw in there to keep it fresh and keep Dallas kind of thinking.
Yeah, and I think also Boston's just done a good job at throwing some of these key players off of their game. Like Luka Doncic is going to get his points. He's made that abundantly clear. Whether it be getting to the free throw line or getting his shots up, he's been a consistent offensive option. Game 1 obviously wasn't efficient. Game 2, very efficient. And I'm interested to see how he's going to do in Game 3. This is going to be a crucial big swing for Boston, especially going up 2-0. Like, Dallas is going to play with a completely different energy. One guy that I think that I would worry about would be Kyrie Irving. I think Kyrie's due for one big game this series. And that's the thing is like Luka's had to do so much so far because Kyrie just hasn't had it. And part of that is for sure playing in Boston. As much as he wants to talk it down or what have you, play it coy, however you want to call it, he's rattled a little bit. And rightfully so, because Boston is defensively built to handle guards like him. Between Drew and Jalen and Derek, like they've got 3 guys right there that not only have familiarity with him between, some of those guys playing each other in the Eastern Conference, as well as just teammates. Like they've done their homework on Kyrie Irving. They know how to throw him off. And so far, so good with that. I still think he's going to be capable of having one big game. And I do think that if it's going to happen, I feel like it happens in Game 3. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. There's no better time than to be wrong when it comes to predicting your opponent to have a huge night. But he's the guy that I look at. And when I look at the defensive situation, that's where with Luka, I just don't want to throw too many people at him because you have to worry about Irving. He's going to demand, a good amount of defensive attention. Even if you think he's cold right now, he's still a really, really good playmaker. Obviously, he's Kyrie, like he's capable of hitting threes. He's capable of dishing the rock. He's got an amazing handle. Like he's had no problem getting to the hoop, and we've seen that. If you continue to force him to do that, if you funnel him towards the hoop and you have the defense set and ready to, force him into a tough look, you just that's kind of the guy, he's going to try and get his. So you just have to make it as hard as possible for him and just take away others. I think those 2 are the key fulcrum points of that offense. It's not like Boston where you've got, 5 or 6 guys that can handle the ball and shoot the 3 and also play defense. It's just, they're not built the same way. So you have to find ways to disrupt that. And so far, Boston's done a great job of that. Do I think they've been perfect? No. But they've also up 2-0. So it's at this point now, we're kind of splitting hairs and hey, how can they be more effective? And again, it's just going to come down to throwing Luka and Kyrie off of their games.
I don't know who Luka and Kyrie are anymore. No, I'm joking. I do agree. I think that, the more you can contain those 2, the more pressure you put on everybody else. And their supporting cast is good, but it's Boston. That leads us on to the third key for the game, key 3, which is continue to pressure the rim, continue to get paint touches, and do not settle for early threes. The Mavericks would love to continue funneling Boston into those corners. It's the way their defense sets up. They want you to spray the ball out. They'll peel switch on you. The Mavericks peel switch a lot because they like to keep a body in front of whoever's driving, because that then when the collapse happens on the paint touch, there's still somebody in front of you, forces you to pick up, and now you have to make a read. Generally on one of those drives, the read is open in the corner, and they're going to bank on you missing those. Boston don't really miss those. Drew Holiday's 40+%. You can trust Derek White. You can trust Payton. You can trust Hauser. So now Dallas is trying to adapt their defense, right? But this whole continue to get paint touches, continue to pressure the rim, use Jaylen Brown as much as you can because he likes to get down there and score on the interior. Lean into that, lean into putting Derek White and Drew Holiday in the corners to make Kyrie Irving and Luka your low men. So then you're removing size away from the rim. So on penetration now, easy to shoot over the help defender. It's easy to jump out into them. There's so many options, and then lean into your reverted dunker spot. So you're creating opportunities there. And again, you're taking size away from the rim and putting a small there. If you can do those things and continue to get paint touches and penetrate, continue to kick out, make secondary reads, tertiary reads, get post touches and then wait for 45 clips, whatever you can do to continually make that Mavericks defense collapse, because it's not very good. Luka Doncic is having an all-time stinker defensively. If you've been on social today, you'll see that Doncic allowed 13 drives in game 2. He got blown by 13 times. First time in 10 years that's happened. It's an all-time stinker of a defensive performance. The more you can make them collapse, the more you can put them in rotation, find the open man, work with a good shot, manipulate their size. They don't have great size as a team anyway. the more you can manipulate that and put Doncic and Kyrie as your rim protectors, the easier the path is going to be to victory. So for me, that's a core concept of trying to win game 3. It's just keep doing what's been working, but do it at a higher level and be a little bit more creative in how you get it.
I also want to say, especially when you talked about Drew Holiday earlier, he feasted in game 2, and so much of it was between the tandem of him and Jason Tatum, because there was multiple times where Drew was hovering around that dunker spot and Jason Tatum was driving into bodies, and, he gets to the hoop and he's got at least 2 guys, if not 3 guys, collapsing on him as he's trying to get a layup up. And Tatum somehow keeps finding him on these little, quick passes just to Drew where he can just get up and get the layup. There was multiple times where they managed to get some of those plays off. And it was not only impressive for Tatum to be able to find it, but also Drew to contribute and hit those. It was almost a triple-double from Jason Tatum. And again, he's struggled offensively, but I think keeping up the rim pressure and having him attack as well as Jalen, it makes all the difference, especially, look, you've already had the outlier performance, right, from the Celtics shooting-wise, where they had an absolute stinker from three-point range, and they still managed to win that game. You need to be able to attack the rim and continue to do so and create those kind of opportunities, especially if you're not confident that your three-point shooting is going to be there every night in, night out. It goes back to the principle of them hanging their hat on defense, but as well as finding other ways to just create shots on the offensive end. And I think so far we've seen a lot of creative looks, at least I think from Jason Tatum, specifically as a playmaker in this series. I think it's Luka Doncic and then Jason Tatum in terms of playmakers so far in this series on potential assists. Last thing I saw, I think on Twitter, was something about that. Because you've got Jason Tatum, who's been struggling offensively, of course, but is still finding ways to keep his teammates involved and to keep things going. So kudos to Jason Tatum. I know it's not the sexiest stat to get all of these assists and have such bad shooting numbers, but he's still finding ways to make it work and keep his teammates involved. Like, that's pretty good, man. And
if we want to round up, it's 17, 10, and 9.
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty damn good. He's almost averaging a triple-double.
It's like, because he's not shooting great, Tatum sucks, right?
Yeah, and I get it. Like, guys struggle and everything like that, but the fact that he's been able to do what he's doing and it still feels like he hasn't been playing his best, but he's still dropping a stat line like that is just testament to how good of a well-rounded player he is. And I know this is turning into Tatum, fandom right now, but I'm just, from an offensive standpoint, I think him putting the pressure he has on the defense has opened up a lot of opportunities for other guys to feast. And I think, like, game 1, you saw Kristaps Porzingis have an amazing performance. Game 2, you saw Drew Holiday have an amazing performance. So I do wonder how this kind of attacking of the rim that's been, having Tatum attack and force the defense to collapse, who else is going to have a big game? Who's going to have the big game for game 3, I guess, is my question. But I hope so. This is kind of the time, right?
I'd really like him to just walk into Dallas tonight and drop it.
And I'd like that too.
And just be like, yo, look, I'm still that guy. I don't need to be that guy. I'm that guy today to show you that I don't need to be that guy. But guess what? We're 3-0 up. We don't care what happens in game 4 now. We want game 5 in Boston so we can raise a banner in front of our fans. Whether that happens or not, it doesn't, like, that irrelevant to me. The win's more important than whether Tatum drops 50. And I feel like that's been his mindset the entire season anyway. But I agree. He's going to be the primary ball handler. He's going to have the highest amount of touches, the number 1 playmaker. A lot will come off how often he can penetrate, get into the paint, and make the read. We should all trust him to do that at this point. Jaylen Brown's drives are going to be just as important. He's grown as a playmaker. He makes those first and second reads quite well. And what I mean by that is that 1 pass away guy, the 2 pass away. Tatum's evolution is now, hey, I spot guys in the corner 3-4 passes away, and I make that on a swing pass. Brown developed there too, and he's being able to manipulate the defense with how I don't want to use the word recklessly, so I want, like, explosively, like, what I'm getting at. He's just fast and strong, athletically. He's being able to manipulate the defense. You've got, as I said, putting your guards in the corners, bringing the guard defenders down onto that low help line where they're forced to That gives you option. Dunker spots give you option. Being able to run a few more set plays that we haven't seen the Celtics run will probably give you some options. Just keep forcing those rotations and everything else should work out because Dallas just doesn't have the defense to deal with what Boston has in terms of all around scoring and all around talent. The guys on the floor are all capable of putting the ball on the floor. They're all 3-level scorers, score from around the rim, the mid range, above the rim. That's 6, dude. 6. Dallas have got 2. You get what I'm saying? So it's much harder to try and contain this. So those are my 3 keys. Figure out who's backing Kristaps Porzingis. Make sure you're penetrating the paint and forcing those defensive rotations. Do not send to as much as possible. Keep doing what you've been doing, guarding man, sending help. And if you can do that, zone up if you need to. Don't run zone. What I mean by zone up is like you've got your defender, you've got a player, you've got another player. Hey, I'm going to split the difference between these two, or I'm going to split the difference, but I'm guarding the guy in the corner, but I'm also zoning the paint. So I've got 2 options to defend on. Do that. That's what the Celtics have done that a lot. If you go on to X, you'll see a breakdown I did yesterday of like how the Celtics attacked a defensive possession from the Mavericks and how PJ Washington was caught over zoning a little bit. So that Tim, before we bounce, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think so. I think the one last thing I'd probably say, and this is what I thought you were going to say
I
earlier.
know, I thought that's why I offered you.
Yeah. Just want to give our thoughts and, feelings out to Jerry West. Hat off for respect for Jerry West. Pioneer of basketball, an amazing player, the logo, only player in NBA history to ever win finals MVP while being on the losing team. Just an incredible player, incredible talent. Was generational when he played, and hats off to him. And amen.